We're back. We're looking at Unwrapping the Pharaohs, lesson number 16, and we're going to be talking about Hatshepsut. And if you remember, we talked a little bit about her in the last lesson. She was the daughter of Thutmose I, and her sister was Nefertiti, who we believe was the princess who was married to Solomon. So Hatshepsut's kind of extended family. She has Thutmose II. And Thutmose II was the son of Thutmose I, but his wife was the secondary wife of Thutmose, was Mennephret, and that was his mother. And eventually, Hatshepsut, which is his half-sister, they became husband and wife. And that gave him a legitimate claim or title to the throne, okay? And it wasn't uncommon back then for, half siblings or people of relations to marry. It was kind of the common practice at that point. So then, Thutmose II, he's married to Hatshepsut, and because of her being a direct descendant of Thutmose I, gives him credibility to the throne. He also has a second wife named Isis, and the two of them have a baby named Thutmose III. Now, Thutmose II dies when Thutmose III is about 12 years old. And he is crowned as Thutmose III. And he's destined to be this great pharaoh, okay? Everybody said he's going to be a great pharaoh, great pharaoh. But he's young. He's too young to claim the throne. So Hatshepsut, she's was a princess, then she was the wife of Pharaoh, Thutmose II, and so she decides at this point that she will help this young Thutmose III out and become his regent. And she rules as regent for about 7 years, okay? And so initially she's just regent, she's helping Thutmose III out, and she does this for about 7 years, and then she decided that, she likes the power, I guess, or whatever the reason. She decides and proclaims herself to be Pharaoh. I am now Pharaoh. She's roughly about 22 years old, and there was kind of a gradual assumption of office, but then she has to have some type of justification. And archaeologists find this justification that she created on a fresco on the Hatshepsut's mortuary temple wall at Deir el-Bahari. And basically what it says is that she was born from the god Amun, and that he appeared as a future ruler, and he appeared to her mother, and they had relations, and so she was born, and he, the god Amun, appoints her as a future ruler of Egypt. And so based on that, it gives her authority, and the people will listen to her, and she goes on to rule for about 22 years. She acted as pharaoh in every sense of the way. She, a lot of pharaohs would shave their heads. They believe she did. They would wear the fake beard and the fake hair. She did all those things. She claimed the throne and ruled just as a man would. She inherited a group of courtiers who stayed with her and just continued to help her to run the country and do the things that she needed to do. On page 119, it says, fortunately, Hatshepsut seems to have inherited a group of courtiers who were content with their role as servants of a female pharaoh. Maybe it was because Hatshepsut treated them well for one of them. Inneni had written on the walls of his tomb, "Her Majesty praised me and loved me. She recognized my worth at court. She presented me with things. She magnified me. She filled my house with silver and gold, with all beautiful stuffs of the royal house. I increased beyond anything." Another official also seemed satisfied with his lot. He wrote, "The god's wife repeated favors for me. The great king's wife, Markari, justified." Okay? So maybe it was because she just took great care of him, but whatever the reason, they stayed with her and helped her. She was also known to be a very beautiful woman. There's many sculptures of her that depict her as beautiful. She herself said, "I'm exceedingly good to look upon." Others would agree with her that they found in her ruins an alabaster eye makeup container. and lots of different reliefs just depict her as a beautiful, beautiful woman. Some were found on the walls of the Red Chapel, and it's been reconstructed in an open-air museum at Karnak. One of them shows her extremely beautiful in the nude and very pregnant. Some of her works that she did, there's some hint that the military still brought her prizes and different things, but it doesn't show her actually hands-on with the military very much. But it does depict her as a sphinx in a couple different places. She also built obelisks like her father. She erected 2 pairs at the Temple of Karnak. One is still standing, and it's 97 feet tall. And one is partially used for the stone, and the rest of it is laying on the ground. The biggest one that she built, though, was never erected. It was partially chiseled from the Aswan Dam, where they got most of their granite, and there was a defect that was found in the stone, so it was never finished. But it would have been about 136 feet tall and weighed over 1,100 tons. Okay? And that is, when they found it, is something that they were able to see and kind of realize how they chiseled all this out. And it was very interesting to these archaeologists. Then you have this person named Senenmut. He was a vizier of Hatshepsut, okay? He was, quote, the overseer of all royal works. He also was a tutor to the royal heiress when she was a child, and became a personal friend of Hatshepsut. And he thought of himself as a very important and great person, okay? Maybe above what he should have. And so there's like I said, just thought of himself as very important. And in the book it says, there was no doubt in Senenmut's mind as to his standing in the kingdom. He wrote, I was the greatest of the great in the whole land. I was the guardian of the secrets of the king in all his places, a privy counselor on the sovereign's right hand, secure in favor and given audience alone. I was one upon whose utterances his lord relied, and whose advice the mistress of the 2 lands was satisfied, and the heart of the divine consort was completely filled. He really thought he was important. There's also some speculation that he was, for at least a little while, a lover of Hatshepsut. And he, like I said, just really believed he was important. And one of the reasons we know this, not only from his words, but he produced a lot of things about himself. He was the architect of Deir el-Bahari. There we find 25 different stone statues of himself. There's numerous paintings of himself. There's 60 different representations of himself in the temple alone. Okay, so he found these things all over the place of him and had him created and put them all over the place. The last thing we want to talk about with Hatshepsut is the land of Punt. Okay, it was found and depicted on the wall of the temple, but no one was really sure and can still be exactly sure of its location. The author argues and believes that it's possibly Israel, okay? Her inscriptions refer to it, Hatshepsut's inscriptions refer to it as, quote, God's land. 1 Kings 10, the first couple of verses of that talks about the Queen of Sheba, and it's believed that could be Hatshepsut. She had heard of the fame of Solomon and went and visited Solomon, and there's belief that if that was her sister that Solomon married, it was another reason for her to go was to see her sister. We also have the Jewish historian Josephus, who talked about the Queen of Egypt who went to Jerusalem. And on page 121 of your book, he talks about Jesus Christ also identified her as coming from Egypt. He said in Matthew 12:42, the Queen of the South will rise up in the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For she came from the end of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And then in Daniel 11, verse 5 and 8, it referred to the king of the south as the king of Egypt. So it would be logical to identify the queen of the south as the queen of Egypt, okay? So just all these things make us believe that if you look at this with Hatshepsut, that the land of Punt is probably Israel. Okay, the conclusion is that ultimately just disappears from the scene. We find some mummies, but we're never positively identified as her. The question is, was she ever buried? Was there vandalism? Was it a little bit of both? And nobody's ever really sure what happened to her or what was going on with her. But the book finishes with this. It says, whatever her immediate successors may have thought about Hatshepsut, today's scholars and tourists visiting her superb temple are filled with admiration, not only for the monuments themselves, but for the remarkable woman who was responsible for their construction, and her capable rulership of the great Egyptian empire when it was approaching the pinnacle of its impressive power. Thanks.